You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, it is Friday. It's the day that we live for each week, and we get to play the big boom with the applause. So hit me some Friday sound effect right now. Friday! Yes. And that was maybe one of the better booms I think we've ever had. And oh, by the way, that's Butters on the board. Hey, man, how you doing?
Oh, man, I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy you're here. This is good, because if you weren't, it'd be really, really troublesome right now.
Yeah, well, you know, you'd figure it out. You'd just start pushing buttons. We'd
just start hitting stuff till things work.
Who knows? Who knows? That's all right. People would still listen.
I just send the show out by carrier pigeon at some point. Anyway, glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
Big Rig's last day was yesterday. You're here subbing in for a bit. You're going to be training the new guy next week.
I feel like we're deja vu.
I know.
But no, it's great to hear Big Rig, you know, that he's had such success with the little side gig become a big gig.
Oh my gosh,
that's awesome. Always great to see.
Big Rig got the big gig. That's good. Yeah, I'm proud for him. And it is very cool. By the way, go check out his website if you get a chance, studysoundaudio.com. Very cool stuff. But yeah, so JP starts next week, and if some of y'all have said things like, well, Butters left. Why did he's never left. Butters has been in the background the entire time, and Butters does a lot of our digital stuff. So he does things that after a while, I just start hearing Charlie Brown's Teacher. I don't know what it means. I just want to know how pretty it's going to be when he's done. But anyway, glad you're here, bud.
Glad to be here.
We got a great show laid on for you, like some very cool stuff. So at 3 o'clock today, we got a guest in studio. Commander James Sherrod, U.S. Navy retired, is going to be here in studio with us. He's got a thing going now. He and several other Naval Academy graduates are doing a thing called the Bama-Rama 500. In raising awareness and money for veterans causes, they are biking 500 miles across the state of Alabama. And so he'll be here in studio at 3 o'clock to give us the lowdown on Bama-Rama 500. And then coming up at 4 o'clock, Congressman Gary Palmer will be on the line with us. I saw Congressman Palmer last night at the API dinner, and he'll be on at 4 to talk about some of the newest things happening with regards to what is going on with policy decisions from the Harris camp, if you will. So, yeah, take a look at that. Then I got a triple dipper just filled up with stuff, so hit it.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. So first out the gate, doubling down. Well, they are. Liberals are flat out doubling down right now on some of their most heinous and liberal policies. Like you'd think they've been talked off the ledge at some point. Nope. Some of these zombie pieces of legislation and bad ideas and rhetoric, they're all coming back because they are truly doubling down. So number 1, that's what it's called, doubling down, number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, in conjunction with having our guest in studio, we're going to be talking Bama-Rama 500. So that's coming up at the 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock hour, Bama-Rama 500. And then number 3, in conjunction with our conversation with Congressman Gary Palmer, we'll be having some straight talk on policy. You know, I've said before, it's policy over personality. You've got to be there. Policy over personality, because what they do for you in office means more than whether they have mean tweets or whether they have, you know, word salads. It's truly, what are they going to do or not do because of their policies? So we're going to, in conjunction with Congressman Gary Palmer's call, we're going to talk straight talk on policy. All right, let me jump over here to the Rightside Way opening monologue. As always, the Rightside Way is how we start the show. And here's what I'm going to do. Today I'm calling this segment, How to Win Arguments with a Liberal. Here you go. This is Liberal Debate 101 right here at Rightside University. So I'm just going to lead off by making some people mad. I'll just get it right out there. Oprah Winfrey is a nut. She is. She's a rich nut, a talented nut, an influential nut. She's even a benevolent nut, but she's still a nut. One of the nebulous and powerfully vacuous things that Oprah likes to do is encourage people to find themselves within themselves so they can be true to themselves. Try to figure that out if you can. Oprah has said that finding your own truth is important and that the, quote, answer is yourself. She asks people to consider questions like, what is the truth of me? Why am I here? What do I have to offer? Look, I'm all for being confident and walking in the strengths and talents God put into you, finding your calling, but this is not that. By encouraging people to find their own truth in the way she does, Oprah Winfrey seems to be determined to make truth a malleable thing. To say that there are no absolutes, no black and white, that we live in a world of gray where anything and anyone and anywhere, anytime can think of something new and it's just truth for that moment, well, that's not the way it works. The fact is that there are actual truths, there are absolutes, and when society is encouraged to discard actual truth in favor of what it likes or feels or wants at the time, then all we're really doing is giving way to fads and whims. We're just reeds blowing in the wind. The actual view of truth is better when it's linked to reality and not to imagination. So if you have an idea that challenges norms, then you must prove it. You must set out to make it visible, tangible, effective. Just saying something is so does not make it so. One of my favorite political personalities of all time is Margaret Thatcher. She was the Prime Minister of England. She had a way with words. She could tear down an opposing viewpoint with a minimum amount of verbiage. One of my favorites was a press conference she was in. At the conclusion of her remarks, she took questions, and one of the reporters began to take issue with Margaret Thatcher's position by saying, "But madam, isn't that just the same old story?" Without blinking, Thatcher responded, "Of course it's the same old story. The truth usually is the same old story." Her point is well taken. Truth is supposed to be unbendable. Truth is the thing that exists when all else is gray. Truth is real, and if it is in fact truth, then nothing can change it. But today there's a movement to go fast and loose with the truth by arguing what Oprah Winfrey calls your own truth. Well, here's the deal. The luxury of redefining truth, or worse yet, carving out your own little version of truth, is in itself not true. Truth is not an option. You can choose to deny it. You can choose to operate outside the bounds of truth. You can even lie about it. But in the end, the truth is still the truth, and that's all there is to it. As an attorney, I've had more than one occasion where I've had to advise a client that their feelings about an issue are not necessarily the truth in the eyes of the law. That's hard to do when they're emotionally caught up in their loss or their grievance. But the black and white letter of the law will have the final say. One client one time told me in no uncertain terms he wanted to sue one of the cities that I live near by taxing him he thought incorrectly. Those blankety-blank so-and-sos, they're destroying my business profitability. They're taking too much of my hard-earned money. So he was going to file a criminal complaint. He was going to sue them in circuit court. He was going to fight this the whole way because he knew what was true. The problem was, it was his version of truth, and his truth only. I had to tell him he was required by law to file a request for an administrative hearing, that it had to be done a certain way, that he could not just leap to court, and he absolutely had no grounds for a criminal complaint. But he knew what he knew, and unfortunately, the burden of proof was on his side, though, to show that his version of truth was the truth, and he couldn't do that. He lashed out at everybody. He threatened to file those criminal complaints, and then he demanded that I file a civil appeal, at which point I finally just told him no. You see, the central issue in his problem was not that everyone else was on God's green earth was wrong. It was him. He was blindly adhering to a storyline that did not ring true in the end because it was his truth. Daring anyone to question his truth was his problem. Look, what I just described to you is what we often see in the progressive left's constant attempt to change culture to fit their truth. But let's talk about how to beat a liberal. I said a minute ago, this is going to be How to Debate a Liberal 101 right here at Rightside University. You ready? Here's the deal. If you're going to argue with a liberal, all you need is two things. Just two things to say, and you will win almost every time. So let me give you these two responses. They're guaranteed to give you a leg up in any discussion with a liberal who is bound and determined to rewrite truth to suit their own notions. Here's the first one. You ready? They say something to you that you know is not true, and you just simply let them know they're not allowed to simply say that something is new truth, and they're going to get mad at you. and they're going to call you a homophobe or a racist or a climate change denier or some other accusatory branding iron that they use when they don't get their way. But just calmly let them know that no, new truth is not truth. That's first. Just flat out look them in the eye and say it's not true. Then second, let them know the burden of proof is on them. Here's where you really get them. That'll freak them out. Because what you've just done is show them that, first of all, you're onto their game. But secondly, that you have principles you're standing on and that they have the onus of burden or burden of proof. They have to prove it. They can't come in and just say, believe it because I say so. Make them prove it. And they're going to freak out. The bottom line is they can't. And that's where it really gets fun. So here's an example. You ready? Let's say you're in the unfortunate position of having to deal with someone who demands that you use their chosen pronouns of they and them because their truth is that they are non-binary. Neither male nor female, but something in between, perhaps even do the application of new gender altogether. Never mind the grammatically correct use of the English language never supported using they, them to represent a singular person, like ever. So you look at them and you say, yeah, I'm sorry, there's no truth in that. Instantly, you're homophobic. Instantly, they'll call you out, denying their most basic of rights, triggering their vast insecurities about the deprivations that non-binary people have endured through the centuries at the hands of cis white males. So you take a breath, you blink at them benignly like a cow grazing in a sunny pasture, and you simply say, prove it. This is where they will either retreat hastily or they will demand that you capitulate under duress because they can't prove it. They can't prove their non-binary status. So you go one step further, you let them know that the biological sciences don't support their status of non-binary, that men can't have babies and women simply can't be dudes. So ask what they can do to prove the science because after all, the burden of proof is theirs and they won't know what to do, so they'll shout, but at that point, you've already won. Okay, here's another example. Just those 2 points, right? You're going to argue with a liberal. This is Liberal Debate 101. Here's another example. Let's say it's demanded that you get on board with green policies. And you begin accepting that sustainable energy solutions are the only way for the world to survive. After all, they will say, the truth is sustainable energy solutions are the best. So you calmly tell them, that's not true. Shrieks of climate change denier and eco-terrorist will follow, but you just ask them the next thing to prove it. To prove that sustainable energy solutions like wind and solar are more capable, more consistent than, say, coal, gas, or nuclear. Prove those solutions are capable of sustaining the grid in peak times and surges. Prove that sustainable solutions are sustainable in inclement weather. Prove that sustainable solutions can exist in the free market without massive government subsidies propping them up. And they can't. So they will scream like banshees on a cold night on the moors, but it does not matter because at that point, you've already won. Look, you can do this with almost any topic. So when the left hits you up with the demand that you give heed to their version of the truth, just remember, first say no and then tell them to prove it. Because yeah, the truth usually is the same old story. And maybe, just maybe, their truth is just a lie. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yeah, I'm saying you can literally disarm a liberal with those 2 points. Look them in the eye and affirmatively tell them, no, that's not true. And when they demand that you change your behavior, just tell them, no, you prove it. And I guarantee you, you'll be called a name, they'll shout and scream, they'll be upset, they'll be triggered. It'll be fun. But at that point, you've already won. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Man, saving the world one soundbite at a time. Okay, so we got tons of text going on already. So text lines are indeed open. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. You can call it or text it. Same one for both. Let me see what I got in here. A few of these. By the way, I will tell you this. There's also breaking news coming out of the southern border that I'm going to just have to mention here momentarily. A couple of things real quick. TL from Huntsville says, once again, great monologue, Phil. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. John 14:6. And I am the Lord, and I change not. Malachi 3:6. Truth will always be truth, regardless of the lack of understanding, disbelief, or ignorance. Philanthropist Clement Stone. TL always has some of the most prolific, I feel like I get continuing ed when I read his text, but thank you, TL. I'm also mindful, too, that if you are leaning not on your own understanding, then you can't just ignore truth. You don't get to follow your own truth when you're leaning not on your own understanding. John from Huntsville, Phil, spectacular monologue. Sounds like you survived Hurricane Helene. I did. Also, did you hear Dale Jackson this morning was trying to start a feud with you because he's upset you stole JP from his show, so maybe you need to replace Dale Jackson on the Grand Council with someone else. No, I wouldn't do that. Although I did text him and tell him I was hiring Yaffe and Emily and that his wife, Cindy, and son, Grant, were going to do a podcast. So... As I have the evil laugh, just saying.
Radio fights in the state of Alabama.
It's all good, bro. It's all good. Brian from Huntsville says, how to win arguments against liberals? Boycott Starbucks. Oh, nice. In other words, you just don't go where they are. Brian from Decatur says, it is impossible to win an argument with a liberal. In their mind, they never accept that they're wrong. The only way to truly win an argument is not to speak to them at all, kind of like a narcissist. Yeah, you know what? I think sometimes you got to go ahead and confront head on. In fact, is it Ephesians 3 that says that we are actually called to expose the lies? So
I think to that end, you define what end of the liberal spectrum are you talking about? Are you talking about a actual halfway intelligent person that just leans left, or somebody that's far out there woke?
Yes.
If that's far out there woke, then yeah, I would totally agree. That's just not worth talking.
Just back off. Chef Ben from Adiana says, every great recipe's got butters. Keep up the good work, fellas.
Nice.
Good play. Big Dill from Hartselle says, I know I'm early, brother, but I'm sure by now you've heard of the 13,000 convicted murderers. Well, okay, so thank you. With a very little time left, I may wind up touching this when we get back, but there's a report that just came out this like today, this morning, saying that the ICE director is now saying that they know of, there have been 13,000 convicted murderers from other countries that have been led across our southern border. Thousands of known rapists and multiple other criminal offenders. They come in with their own record. ICE is now able to determine from countries, that we have the ability to see their records, that these people were basically either let loose or made their way north to get away, and they are now somewhere inside the territorial United States, and that's a jacked up situation. That is absolutely unconscionable. And you look at it and go, I hesitate to just jump on the word treason, but we're about there. I mean, we really are. I'll tell you more about that when we get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one, I do mean this one. I'm talking about this one, Alabama. Y'all, this show goes like way down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville and Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. All right, welcome back to the first hour here. We're in Friday mode, going to get you guys all the way to go home time. I'm going to kick off the first dipper here, doubling down, and I will tell you this, doubling down includes issues related to the border. So what do I mean by doubling down? Well, what I'm saying is it gets to the point that you have to recognize they've already lost the argument. There's nothing left, and yet they're going to double down again on their positions. And we're seeing it in a variety of ways. Some of it's cultural, some of it's government policy, some of it's actions or inactions related to the border. Well, so Kamala Harris gave a speech today. Apparently, she's headed to the battleground state of Arizona. It's going to be her first trip to the border. Actually, only her second trip in the entire 4 years she's been vice president, despite being the border czar and everything else. But she's headed to the southern border, and she gave a speech, and she says that what America really needs is a president who's serious about border security and not just for playing politics. What does that even mean? What are your border policies? Well, a story that wasn't even in my stat because the story just broke here in the last hour is that we're looking at statistics right now from the southern border that are of an epic scale, and they're some of the most concerning statistics I've seen. I mean, it's sickening to figure out how our border has become a non-issue in terms of, people respecting its, parameters. But now you look at some of who is here. What happened is this. Representative Tony Gonzalez, who's a Republican out of Texas, he demanded that ICE produce to him, Immigration Customs Enforcement, produce to him information on what they know about illegals who have been detained and then released into the interior of the United States and whether they had prior criminal records. The information he got is staggering. And this is not information that is surmised. It is not social media fluff. It is not something that came from anywhere else except for the U.S. government itself. Listen to this. So they have what they call two dockets. They have the non-detained docket, which contains illegal. They have detained dockets, which are people who are still being held, like for whatever reason, they're not being released to the interior. Unfortunately, the vast majority are released, and they call that the non-detained docket. The non-detained docket of people who have final orders of removal or requirement to show up for a notional hearing at some point in the future. In the meantime, you're on parole. Just go wander around the United States and do what you want to do. 7 million people are known to be on that docket. Within that 7 million, ICE knows and produced data that said that 425,431 of them are convicted criminals. 222,000 of those have pending criminal charges right now. No, I'm sorry, it's 425 plus 222. My gosh. Now let's talk about what that means. They include 62,000 of convicted assault, 14,000 convicted of burglary, 56,000 with drug convictions, 13,000 convicted of murder. An additional 2,500 have kidnapping convictions, and 15,000 of them have sexual assault convictions. And knowing this, they were still released into the interior of the United States. There's an additional 1,845 of them with pending homicide charges that weren't convicted, but they apparently came to our borders while their charges were pending back home. 42,000 of them still have pending assault charges, 3,200 with burglary charges, 4,250 with additional sexual assault charges. My gosh. I mean, we're looking at 662,566 non-citizens released into our interior with criminal records and or criminal pending charges. Y'all, that's enough for it to be a problem in every state in the nation. And you look at it and go, why are you doubling down on saying that the border is secure and that things are good and we're going to take care of stuff and we're taking care of stuff and the last 4 years have been successful? Why would you double down on that when your own people are giving up the stats? This is disturbing. I mean, this is like, go ahead and make sure you got your home defense weapon kept close by. Right now there's we have an alarm system notification thing at my house, and we get the notifications when somebody sees something or whatever, in and around the neighborhoods, and multiple times there's been one guy who's been going around trying to get into people's houses, and people's ring systems and all are picking up his image and they keep passing it around. It's the same guy. You look at it and go, okay, it's everywhere. I don't know if he's illegal. All I know is this: you got stuff happening on a regular basis. And even if he wasn't illegal, the fact is we still have 662,000 illegals with these records that are now wandering around.
At least there aren't any terrorists out there either.
Yeah, about that. 3,000% increase in the number of terror watch list individuals who are known to have crossed the border. 3,000% increase. What does that mean? It's in the hundreds. So it's not like the same numbers I just showed you. That's okay. It only takes one.
It does make you wonder how you can stand there with a straight face and go, oh, no, it's fine. It's fine.
There are unconfirmed reports right now that that intelligence officials are tracking upwards of 9 SAMs, surface-to-air missiles, that have made it across the southern border. And I hesitate to even say that because I don't have confirmation reports, so I'm not even going to delve into it much further than that. But all I know is this. We have multiple pseudo-reporters saying that they are getting information of yada, yada. And we're on the brink of a serious problem. Doubling down, that's where we are right now, number one on the Triple Dipper. So the first one was one that I hadn't even planned. It just jumped into being. How about this one? Doubling down, right here in Alabama. Let's pick a local story. You ready for this? How about 1819 News has a story that came out today. Albertville, Alabama. Probably 20 minutes, 25 minutes from where Butters and I are sitting right now. Albertville, Alabama. They've been dealing with the Haitian migrant crisis. It's in Marshall County. And there's a lot of them here. You may not be aware. There's an entire subculture in Alabama now of Haitian migrants. They are here in a quasi-legal status. A questionable program put in place by the Biden administration is flying them in direct from Haiti and putting them on what's known as parole in place status. Parole in place means parole and wander around is what it really is. But just bringing them here. So they didn't cross the border on their own illegally. They were given a protected status because they were basically flown in. It's the most unconscionable thing I've ever seen. By the way, keep in mind that program was shut down for corruption just a few months ago and then rekindled within 60 days. The Biden administration is bringing in upwards of 30,000 people a month by direct flight from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. It's the CHNV parole program, they call it. In Marshall County, Alabama, up here in the northeast corner of the state, they're already forming protest groups. So, story here on 1819 News, a local racial activist group in Marshall County is planning to hold a meeting Sunday to educate Haitian migrants on how to deal with law enforcement. Really? The Know Your Rights meeting will be held at a local Haitian church. They already have Haitian churches. I don't fault them for having a church, but it's interesting to me that they're not assimilating, they're just forming their own subculture. Hosted by Project Say Something, the Alabama Coalition of Immigrant Justice, and another group called Reclaiming Our Time. 1819 News reached out for comment, did not receive a response, but this will also be hosted in part by Black Lives Matter of Birmingham, the ACLU, the North Alabama Showing Up for Racial Justice Group, and the Fair Housing Center of North Alabama. It's like, good Lord, they're getting the old band back together. We don't have 2020. George Floyd wasn't killed, but nonetheless, we got quite the gaggle going in Marshall County, Alabama. One particular activist who goes by the name of Unique Dunstan. Unique is a resident of the community of Horton. She's been very vocal about her opposition to Albertville residents trying to address immigration issues and claims it's all based on racism. Her words, she says, the enforcement of these ordinances would be clearly directed toward migrants trying to live together for survival. The enforcement measures they are proposed are inherently discriminatory and threaten not only the people directly, but our city as a whole. Blah, 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 blah. But the bottom line is, in her words, everything is racist and xenophobic. Just saying.
Wonder what their thought process would be if we just started busting in 30,000 staunch conservative Southern Baptists into the community. And, how would that go over?
I need me a busload of cis white evangelicals. Just cart them in, man.
I wonder if she'd be singing the same tune.
Doubling down. That's what liberals are doing these days. And listen, I think part of this is it's almost to the point of being laughable. You can watch what's happening and you can see that they are desperate to get as much done as they can before November because they can smell, they fear and they smell the potential loss they're going to experience at the polls. We're not done. I'm not counting my chickens before they hatch. But I'm telling you right now, momentum is not in favor of the liberal progressive position. Polls are tight. We got work to do. But I think that liberals are scratching and clawing and biting for everything they can get right now. It's like watching a drowning man who will drown his rescuer trying to save himself. How about this? Up in Michigan. I'll do this for the break. Michigan. The Michigan legislature has funded a tip line so that students can turn in their parents for not having properly stored guns. Butters' head just sank. He is crestfallen. Butters, can you imagine? House Bill 5503, a budget amendment to the 2025 budget passed by Democrats ramming it through with the help of some Republicans. It has $125 million allocated to mental health programs, many of which are to fund the LGBTQ agendas. And they also have $1 million set aside to help create a tip line that children can use to call anonymously and report their parents for engaging in improper firearm storage.
Somebody's going to need a spanking.
Somebody's going to need a spanking, and I guarantee you too, there's a bunch of parents going to need a lawyer. And here's what else is going to happen: you're going to have the angry ex-spouse that's going to file complaints. You're going to have the angry child who got grounded and decided to call it in. You're going to have the former disgruntled employee that's going to call and make a report. Because that's exactly what happens when you set this kind of thing up. And next thing you know, police are going to be having to go out and knock on law-abiding citizens' doors and say, Mr. So-and-so, we are here to check your house. Why? Do you have a warrant? Well, we had a report of your gun not being stored properly. I have a Second Amendment right, and I also have a right to due process. Where's your warrant? Sir, we have a report. Who reported it? I'm sorry, it's anonymous.
What is the legal requirement for storage of your firearm to begin with?
Exactly. So I need to look and see whether Michigan has red flag laws, but I'm gonna bet you that as they begin to morph the red flag laws, that one of the red flags will be improper storage, because that means you're not a responsible gun owner. Just watch. They're doubling down, man. They are doubling down hard. All right, Butterman, take me to a break. First break of the day. I'll come back and tell you, doubling down on climate change? Well, you might be interested to find out what Bill Gates is up to try and help the press understand how better to be climate activists. The press. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Like making common sense like a superpower. All right, text lines are going crazy. I'll catch up with you guys on the texters here momentarily. Let me jump on the phones, though, because he held on during the break, and I appreciate it. Brian from Huntsville. Hey, buddy, how are you?
Doing okay. That was very interesting, though, the doubling down and followed up by ELO, Don't Bring Me Down.
I had not thought of this, but yes. I should go ahead and take credit, but I can't.
Well, in any case, I was thinking back on everybody jumping on turning people in. This brings me back to my historical area, 1932 through maybe 36.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, people were encouraged to turn their parents or anybody in because they felt that they felt it wrong, so they turned them in.
You're talking about Nazi Germany, right?
Encouraged. That is correct.
Yeah. Well, that was also the tactic of
the Nazi.
That was also the tactic of the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, was to make sure that no one was safe and you had to turn everybody in. They do it in North Korea still to this day.
Oh wow! And you bring me back to Children in the Sun. I think it was with
yeah.
I can't remember who played it. The fellow Bruce Willis. So.
Oh yeah. Oh, that Tears of the Sun. Great movie.
Tears of the Sun. Yes.
All right, man.
Have a good one.
See you, buddy. Yeah, that's and by the way, it's on the Rightside media.org website. Recommended reading. A great book. It's called Escape from Camp 19, and it's about a guy who escaped from a concentration camp in North Korea and defected to the South. But he grew up inside the concentration camp where he was basically taught to turn in everybody, to include one time he reported his parents because somehow they got extra meat for their meal, and his parents were executed. And so but he didn't even feel guilty because he did what he was supposed to do. It's unreal. Hey, doubling down, how about the climate change stuff? So I got this story real quick. I want to get it in. I don't know which one I want, packing of the Supreme Court or climate change. Either way, the bottom line is this. The liberals are dumbing down maybe they're dumbing down too, doubling down like crazy. A little Freudian slip there, but it's true. The climate blueprint for media transformation has been put out. What is that? Well, story here in the Daily Wire from yesterday. This is a organization or document funded by the Ford Foundation and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, among a few others, that literally gives the press everything they need to know to be climate activists. I thought they were the press. Yeah. This document encourages journalists to take bold action and make stories on every beat. Last I checked, journalists are supposed to report what is already existing, not take bold action and make stories. But it goes on to talk about how they need to shift from chasing deadlines to meaningfully connecting with women and people of color and indigenous persons and LGBTQIA communities and other unaffected or disaffected communities that are more impacted by the climate crisis. That's called activism, y'all. That's what that is. They're literally putting out a blueprint for how the press should become activists. They even tell them, be intentional with your language. Don't call it a demonstration, call it a riot, because words matter. I mean, they're literally trying to stoke fear, create stories, and put activism into what the First Amendment calls freedom of the press. Last one I'll tell you is doubling down. Yeah, well, Senator Ron Wyden, Democrat of Oregon, has introduced a new bill that would allow the Democrats to pack the Supreme Court. They're trying to get it done while they still have a little bit of a majority in the Senate. They won't get there. They won't get there right now. All the more reason not to let them have a majority in the next election cycle. But this sweeping bill is coming through that would allow them to expand the court from 9 justices to 15. And you can imagine how that would go. And that's only because they've been losing so badly because, the political process being what it is, guess what? If Republicans win, we get to appoint people. And they can't stand that. Roe v. Wade is so under their skin, we're living rent-free inside their head every single day. All right, listen, I didn't even get to all my stuff, but the bottom line is the left is doubling down in part because they smell and they fear the opportunity for loss coming up in the next election. And they're doing everything they can to scratch out as much as they can. And you've got to continue to say no. You got to see it and say it. And you got to continue to say no, because this is our country we're talking about. All right, coming up next, we got Lieutenant Commander James Sherrard, retired Navy, who's going to be in here talking about something coming up next week called the Bemarama 500. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And, oh, yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 on a Friday. We're getting you all the way to the go-home time at the end of the week, and we appreciate you guys being with us. Text lines are going crazy. You want to text it or call it, the number is the same for both. It's 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. What I don't get anytime soon, I'll catch up on before the show's over, but just keep sending in your comments and your thoughts. In the meantime, I'm proud to have somebody in the studio with us right now. So there's a thing happening next week. Apparently the Navy does things on land sometimes, I'm finding out. But I'm proud to have in studio with us Lieutenant Commander James Sherrard, retired U.S. Navy. And he's here to talk about a thing called the Bamarama 500. But Lieutenant Commander James Sherrard, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for coming in studio. It's always more fun when you're in studio. Of course, right now I am surrounded by Navy. Between you and Butters, I am surrounded by Navy. But I'll hold my own.
You should feel secure.
I do. I feel secure.
You are the senior one in the room, though, so there is that.
Well, then okay, as you were.
Yes, aye.
All right, hey, I'll tell you what, tell us a little bit about you, first of all. You hail from the Huntsville region now, right?
I hail from Huntsville now, originally from Austin, Texas, a town that used to be a lot like Huntsville, I think. But I left Austin in 1979, went off to the Naval Academy with 1,440 of my now closest friends, and largest class ever at the Naval Academy, ever before and ever since.
Wow.
And
you became class of 83, you said?
Became the class of 83.
All right. What'd you do in the Navy?
I flew helicopters for 20 years.
Yeah, what was your airframe?
H3, the venerable Sikorsky H3
Yeah.
Sea King. If you ever see the Apollo missions where they picked up the astronauts, the big white Winnebago-looking helicopter,
Yeah.
that was us. That wasn't me.
That's a school bus with a rotor on it, man. That thing's huge.
It is. We miss it.
Well,
And then I transitioned to the Seahawk, the Navy version of the Black Hawk after
Right.
that. Flying off aircraft carriers mostly, but landing on the small decks too.
well, thank you for your service, by the way. How many years total?
20 total.
20 total. All right. Well, you've been there and done that and done a few sea tours, I'm sure. So you guys, Naval Academy guys, have got this thing called the Bamarama, but it's not just for larks. I mean, you got a purpose behind it.
Started out as larks.
Did it really?
We had some of the guys that were dedicated cyclists at our 35th reunion at the Academy who brought up the idea of most of us are going to be retired from Navy service by the time we get to our 40th reunion.
Right.
So why don't we try to do something big? And somebody said, well, we could do a cycling trip. And they said, okay, how far can we cycle? Well, if we start at the Pacific Ocean and ride to the Atlantic Ocean, that's kind of Navy-like. Let's do that. And everybody kind of
Navy-like. I thought Navy-like would be go down through the Panama Canal and come across.
Well, that's a good point, yeah. Well, we hit the major ports. We just would be on land between. So we they aired that idea, and people kind of laughed about it at first, but then they started putting it together and saying we could really do this. And then after the 3 years prior to the 40th reunion, they started doing training rides every summer for about 2 weeks, and we would do some of the legs. So I think the team that did that, and full disclosure, I did not do that whole ride. I did one leg of 43 legs, so the last leg. So they started doing training rides every summer for about 2 weeks, and I think that some people, a member of the team had ridden the entire course when they did the big band. They called it the Ride Across America.
Wow.
And sometime during those 2 or 3 years where they finished up, they said, hey, riding all day and then drinking beer with friends at the end of the day is a lot of fun, a lot of camaraderie, but we're spending a lot of time here. Why don't we try to make it matter? Let's see if we can raise some money for a good cause.
Wow.
And like any good group of diverse people, we couldn't decide on one cause, so we set up a structure with a nonprofit where each rider would support a charity of their choice, but it had to be veteran-oriented. So that's how we set it up. We're a nonprofit, but we haven't collected any money for our organization because we don't want to try to figure out how to how to give it out to the veterans charity. So each rider has a link. I'm supporting Still Serving Veterans here in Huntsville.
Yeah, Still Serving Veterans is a great organization. I'm very familiar with them. In fact, a friend of mine used to be one of their directors. And but good folks. We recently had an event that I was a speaker at, as a matter of fact, that Star Market was helping support Still Serving Veterans. And all right. So let me go back before we get into the Bamarama thing. So I want to go back. Hang on a second. You had 43 legs to go from Pacific to Atlantic. I mean, how long did that take?
44 days. They took one day off.
Wow.
And they found a big fan at there's a military vehicle museum somewhere in Montana, and it is apparently something that is on par with one of the a Smithsonian type museum. So they stayed there overnight.
Wait, they went Pacific and they swung north to Montana?
They started in Seattle.
Okay. That makes sense.
It's a little cooler.
You weren't starting in San Diego and running the lower routes. You were.
No.
It's a great circle route. It's a great circle route.
That sounds like a great circle route.
Perhaps it is. But we tended to stay on the roads. It was a road bike ride, and
sounds more like you aviator guys were in a holding pattern at that point, just looping in the sky.
I called one of the riders on my drive over from Huntsville today and talked to him a bit about it. He said there were I think it was 44 days. One day they took off 3,200 and something miles. They crossed the Continental Divide 6 times. And I paused him and I said, well, why did you do that?
I might say that's poor planning.
But that's the way the roads go.
Okay.
And so they had to, you can't ride a straight line.
Yeah.
And so they had to go, they started out pretty far north. They had to drop down farther south to get across the 11 states that they crossed.
Wow.
And so they ended up crossing the Continental Divide at
That's very
9
cool.
times.
And how many guys total did when you count them all together, there are multiple legs, I know, but how many guys total did it? Do you know?
They're saying it was right around 83.
Okay. So
total that it participated for a day or more.
And they were all from class of 83 at Annapolis?
Some friends and family joined us.
Okay. Wow. All right.
They had I think 14 through riders, the ones that said, I'm going to dip my rear tire in Puget Sound, and I'm going to dip my front wheel into the Severn River, which is the river that goes into the Chesapeake Bay right at Annapolis.
Wow.
So I think 14 guys did the whole thing.
I guarantee they lost a little weight. No matter how much beer they drank at night with their friends.
They were saying that on those rides, because I think they did 9, they call them centuries. I'm not a cyclist, but I've learned the lingo. A century is 100 miles in a day.
Okay.
So they did 9 centuries, and then at one point, just because you get out west and the cities are far apart,
right,
they did 3 centuries in a row. 3 days in a row, they rode 100 miles. They were tired then. But they said you couldn't eat enough calories. You could eat all day and then eat a big dinner, eat a big breakfast, and you still were losing weight.
I know. You're just praying for the next downhill at that point.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. You say you're not a cyclist, but yet you're doing this thing, and we'll talk about what the thing is more in a minute. But so, how much ground are you going to cover in the next week or so?
We're going 500 miles. We're leaving next Saturday.
Okay.
The 5th of October.
But you're not a cyclist, but you're going to do 500 miles.
Well, I wasn't a cyclist up till last May.
Okay.
And the same guy called today. John Holtz. He's up in Illinois now, I think.
Okay.
But he's our coach, our team coach. He's a cyclist, and he gave us a training plan. And we're on some of the athletic social media apps, Strava, and we've got a challenge up there every month. And he puts our training thing in there, which is how many miles we have to ride each week, and get a check in the box. Like this month was 550 miles for September.
Wow!
And he gave us a goal for each week, and he said, and you have to ride a century in September, and you have to ride 4 days in a row. I want you to do a significant bike ride 4 days in a row, so you get used to that feeling of getting up after riding 2 days, a long way. So I did my century last weekend with the Spring City Cycling Club in Huntsville. They did a all-you-can-eat century.
All right. So how long does a century take you? I know terrain dictates some of it, but
yeah.
But like when you leave out in the morning after trying to load up on some carbs, and then you hit the road and you got to go 100 miles, how long does it take?
And you want to know me, not Lance Armstrong.
Okay. Yeah. You.
Right.
How long
Yeah.
does you, not Lance Armstrong?
I averaged between 12 and 13 miles an hour, so it took me between 6 and 8 hours.
Okay.
So.
All right.
And we took some good breaks along the way. You got to refuel and.
So are e-bikes allowed?
We don't ban them, and e-bikes are pretty subtle now.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily know somebody's on an e-bike.
I was laughing, but you guys are serious.
Yeah, they're pretty legit.
That's not cheating. Sorry, I didn't say that. The Army guy didn't say that.
Well, there's no-
Y'all both stared at me like I just did something wrong.
So I guess the Navy saying of if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying,
No,
right?
that's the Army saying. Thank you very much.
I think that's a pretty universal DOD.
We may say it too.
Okay.
But there was, I think, one of the riders one of the through riders had an e-bike, and because we're not competing, this is not an Olympic event,
I
riding
get
from coast
you,
to coast.
yeah.
So the primary goal was to have a good time, camaraderie with friends, see guys
Yeah.
we haven't seen in
Sure.
40 years,
Sure.
and spend some time with them. So I'm going to see classmates next Saturday that I haven't seen since we graduated in '83.
Oh, that's very cool. All right, well, listen, we're in studio right now with retired Lieutenant Commander James Sherrard. We're going to come back and talk about what they're actually doing, what my new non-cyclist friend is about to do with 500 miles, and why he's doing it. But it's very cool, actually, and that's why I wanted him on the show. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Like pulling pins on truth grenades. All right, so we're back in studio right now with retired Navy Lieutenant Commander James Sherrard, who is apparently, I don't care what you say, you're a biker now. You are indeed. You're a cyclist. I'm sorry, I had the wrong word. You're a cyclist now. Whether you think you're a professional or not, you're a cyclist.
Yeah,
my friend.
you know why I call it cyclist. When we started promoting the Bam 500, people were impressed that we were gonna bike from Huntsville to Orange Beach, 500 miles in a week. And then we'd be talking to them about 5 minutes into the conversation. They would say, wait, you mean you're bicycling? You're not riding Harleys? And we said,
No.
yeah. And they'd go, oh my gosh, I want to donate because I might not see you again or something.
Cool. All right. Well, I tell you what. Let me do this. Let's talk about the why. You mentioned that this started off kind of as a lark, a bunch of guys who graduated together from Annapolis, and then at some point it sort of became a thing. Like, wow, you know what? We could do something for other people too. So expand on that a little bit.
Well, the guys were riding, and again, full disclosure, I didn't do that long ride, but
Right.
I watched them.
You watched part of it though, right? You did
the
one
very
leg-
end of
one
it, yeah.
leg? Yeah.
And I watched them enviously the whole time and wishing I had done it. And that's why I'm in this ride, because I said I'm never, ever going to skip that thing again because they had so much fun. And they just they accomplished so much. But they were... They said, we're working really hard, and we're wearing all these. They got matching jerseys and everything, and they'd ride through a town, and they got a tremendous amount of attention. And people would ask, why are you doing this? We said, well, we just want to have fun. And they said, we want to be able to say we're doing something, and we could use all this attention for good. So they started a nonprofit. They got a board of directors, and they qualified and got certified as a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And then again, they couldn't decide on a single charity or didn't want to start a charity, and they didn't. Frankly, no one wanted to handle the money or have an accountant and do all that stuff. So they just said, we'll just choose charities and then we'll just pass through because the internet can handle that now. So again, for example, I've chosen Still Serving Veterans here in Huntsville. If you go
Right.
to, I'm going to
Do it.
give it a plug, ssv.org/events/ride. If you go there, you'll see a little bit about me, and then they have a link where you can donate to the ssv.org, but I get credit for it, so I get street cred with the other 17, the other 16 riders, because we're competing. We're a competitive bunch.
Yeah.
So we were able to track that, and able to tell you right now that in 2023, we raised $710,000 for
Did
veterans
you really?
charities. Yeah.
Wow.
And we're already up to almost 800,000 now total. So another 100,000 just in 2024 setting up for Bama 500.
Wow. All right. So you said that one of the stipulations was that everybody raises their own portion, but they have to raise it. It has to be a veteran-related cause.
Yes.
All right. So like you're doing Still Serving Veterans, which is a great group that literally helps veterans transition into civilian life and also find meaning in civilian life and also find, benefits they didn't know they were, all the things that they've earned but they didn't know they may have had. And that's a huge deal. What other organizations are some of the guys supporting? Do you have any idea?
I have some ideas. There's a veterans, and it's on our website, navy-cycling.com, and we each focus on our own. One of my classmates has started a charity called Brain Balance for Veterans, and he's helping veterans with PTSD,
Okay.
and other brain disorders to kind of recover, and so he's got kind of a nonprofit charity he started. There's one, I think it's Canines for Vets, and they train service dogs. And I think
I'm actually
you're looking at the website.
If you're listening and you're sitting in front of a computer, go to the navy-cycling.com, and they've got a page, Operation Heal Our Patriots, the veteran homelessness and suicide prevention. They've got them all listed out there with a convenient little click here button. I'm sure it makes it easy to go donate and support.
But scroll till you get to Still Serving Veterans.
Well, actually, that's the first one. So you
they
got
rotate them. I asked them to put it on top for this. So
nice.
They actually did it. Yeah.
Good deal. All right. Well, so all you guys are doing this, and you're raising money for these causes, and then the groups I'm sure are aware you're doing it. So Still Serving Veterans they're on top of the idea that you're out there doing this 500-mile bike ride on their behalf, and I think that's cool. So let me ask you this: as you guys are putting this all together, what kind of response are you getting? You said you've raised $800,000. Do you have corporate benefactors? Do you have individual benefactors? Is it both? What are you seeing?
We've evolved. We were looking for sponsors at one point, and then we decided we don't want to collect our nonprofit, we don't want anybody to give us anything, because then we have, first, it's just administrative stuff, and we like to ride bikes and we like to do good things, but we want to direct all the money to the charities. So 100% of anything that we collect doesn't even pass through our organization. It goes to the charities, and all of our riders are self-funded for lodging, gas. We got support vehicles. We got people helping us out. We got meals. We're all self-funded. We pool our money, but we all paid, enough to cover all of our costs. So I forgot your question, but I wanted to make sure that you got that point.
You're on it, though. Corporate and individual donors, though.
We have two donors now. One of them is that military vehicle museum, who he likes us and we like him, and he's donated money towards the cause, which would help to defray some of our expenses. And then we have a company. Help me out here. It's on the website. It's somebody donated a bunch of water to us.
Okay.
I think it's actually a Naval Academy graduate.
Waterway Distributing.
Yeah, down in Birmingham.
Birmingham.
They gave us crates of water.
Well, listen, I think this is like epic cool, and I love the fact that you're not doing it, and nobody here is making a paycheck out of this. And no one here is like lining their own pockets or doing something, and there's no percentage of it that has to go to the administrative cost of the organ. You're just literally raising money and having a good time with guys you served with or graduated with, and that is pretty freaking cool. On this show all the time, I'm always talking about find that place where your passion is and get actively engaged in it, because that's how we change our world. And you don't have to go change the whole world, change the part you're in. And so you guys are doing that. We're gonna take a break here momentarily, but when we get back, I want to jump into the what. All right, so we got who you are, we got the why you're doing this. I want to jump into what exactly are you about to do and where are you going to be, in case folks want to meet you along the way. All right?
Great.
All right. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. Solid, conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one, I do mean this one, Alabama, y'all. I'm talking about this show goes like way down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. I made a joke earlier, by the way. I'm in studio right now with retired Navy Lieutenant Commander James Sherrard talking about the Bamarama 500. But I made a joke earlier about all you Navy guys doing this stuff on the land. I just had somebody text in. Shane from Huntsville says, I was an EOD tech, and I once had to respond to a Navy torpedo in New Mexico. No explanation given. Just had to respond to a Navy torpedo in New Mexico. Okay.
I can't say that was mine.
Oh, I'm sorry, your mic wasn't on.
Yeah, I can't say that was mine.
No, no attribution at all whatsoever. Hey, so all right, so James, we talked about kind of who you are, your career. You got the class of '83. You guys are obviously you guys aren't kicking the bucket. You guys are still doing stuff, and which I think is cool. And then we talked about the why you're doing this. Let's talk about the physical what. I mean, so the Bamarama 500, exactly what is it you're going to do? Where are you going to be? When's it going to be? If folks want to see you along the way, let's talk it through.
All right. Well, first, just to, I guess, the elephant in the room, it's not 500 miles from here to Gulf Shores.
Okay.
So we want to ride 500 miles. So many times, the aviators in the group, I think there's 7 of us out of the 14ers, or half aviators. We were like, there's a much more direct route. So we have one of our riders, Scott Watson, down in Birmingham. He had some places he wanted to visit to show. I think he's a Alabama native.
Okay.
And he had some places he wanted to show, some people that he wanted to introduce us to. So he's I don't know that he's a bigger Auburn fan than a Bama fan, and I don't want to get into that. But he knows some folks in Auburn, and he wanted to stop there. So that kind of would put a pin in the map where we're going, and kind of laid out the rest of the course.
Okay.
The rest of it was just dividing the lake from Huntsville to Auburn, dividing that up into rideable lengths for days, and then from
Gotcha.
Auburn to Gulf Shores.
So you're going to run an arc like from Huntsville, kind of around the eastern side of the state, down through Auburn, and then loop it back towards the coast.
Exactly. Yeah, we're doing Huntsville, Scottsboro, Gadsden, Oxford, and Auburn. And if you're a fan of Alabama geography, you might notice that those first 3 legs they're about 50 miles each.
And there are a lot of them uphill.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, I can picture some of where you're going, and I mean, you got to cross over Sand Mountain, and then you said you're going to go up the Cecil Ashburn cut through in South Huntsville to
riding
Hampton Cove.
Cecil Ashburn on Saturday morning, next Saturday morning, and actually doing it twice tomorrow.
Okay.
If the weather holds,
All
just
right.
for practice.
Well, you get down to the plains, down towards Auburn Way, you'll be flat for a while, but then
we're pushing 100 miles on those days.
At that
we're
point,
over 80 miles each day from Auburn to Troy to Crestview, and we know Crestview's not.
I was going to say your geography's off. You're not in Alabama at that point.
Technically not Alabama, but we all know it's L.A. That's Lower Alabama.
But you being an aviator, you're also going back to home country because that's Pensacola Naval Air Station down there, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
We're riding right through downtown Pensacola. That's going to be fun. That's like memory lane kind of for all the aviators. So we're traveling between 60 and 99 miles a day, and some of the last days are going to be, well, there's not that many hills, but they're long days.
Well, so all right, this is going to be multi-days. Your day, are you going to make stops? Like, is there going to be people that can like wave at you along the way and hold flags up and be your groupies?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I was going to ask if I could call you each day for we'll call it the Bamarama Dipper. And sometime during the day, tell you how we're doing.
Give us a gut check. Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly. We're on 2 to 5 every day, and we'll do a gut check with you sometime along the way, and,
All right.
and you just tell us where you're at.
That'd be fun.
All right. So you leave next Saturday, the 5th. Is that right?
Saturday the 5th, 9 o'clock. We're leaving from the Space and Rocket Center. We've got
Okay.
Pat Amons at the Space and Rocket Center has got us cleared to do we're doing 22 push-ups every morning in recognition of 22 veteran suicide today, which was when we started a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So we acknowledge that and draw some attention to that issue, and try to knock out 22 push-ups. You're welcome to join us in Gadsden on Sunday or Monday morning.
Okay.
But and then we're rolling out of the Space and Rocket Center at 9 a.m. Saturday morning.
Okay.
And heading across Huntsville and then over the mountain to Owens Crossroads. First stop there for water and snacks, and then lunch at Cathedral Caverns and on to Scottsboro.
Oh, that's a cool ride, man.
Have you got James Spann providing you a good weather report each day?
Now, you're a Huntsville guy. You know who James Spann is?
I know who James Spann is.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Not only do we have him providing a weather report, he's tracking us.
Nice.
He said he's going to report on us every day, and report our weather to the state. Like, here's where the weather is, where the Bama 500 Navy riders are today.
Nice.
So, yeah.
And how many of y'all in this ride? How many of y'all are going on this ride, you said?
17.
17, okay.
14 Academy graduates, 3 friends and family.
All right.
And we got a support crew of 8. So we got 5 vehicles going with us, 1 truck pulling a trailer, because we don't know what kind of weather we're going to run into. So we're hoping it's going to be cool and dry the whole way. But we know it's probably going to rain. It's probably going to be too cool or too hot. So we're taking, clothes and stuff, a bunch of tools, extra tires, maybe an extra wheel or 2. So we've got a trailer with all that stuff in it, luggage, and the sport crew has luggage. So we got a kind of an entourage.
Well, I'll plug the website again. I know we talked about it early on, but Navy-cycling.com, and they've got a nice, convenient page. Go to the support, and they've got all the different things to support. But I guess steering you towards still serving veterans. Is that the one that everybody needs to go?
That's your goal anyway, right?
That's your goal.
In this listening area, yeah, that's the local. That's the local.
Yeah, lots of information, big blog full of all this stuff. So go check that out. Navy-cycling.com.
Well, you had some folks you also wanted to thank, and I want to give you a minute to do some of that. I don't know how long your list is, but give me a few of those because they've really been in the background sort of promoting and helping you get this thing going.
Okay. Peyton Newman over at WHNT, she's sort of their military activities reporter. She's going to cover our departure from the Space and Rocket Center, especially now that I've mentioned it on the air. And I have this on my list here, but we believe we're going to have Tommy Battle and Rex Reynolds at our kickoff dinner on Friday night. And we're hoping to see them on Saturday morning, too.
Okay.
And here's my plug for Mayor Battle. We're hoping he's going to ride the first mile with us at least.
Nice.
On
an e-bike.
Literally, yes. We're not going to try to get him to go ride over Cecil Aspirin with us. He's welcome to, but we just want to see if he would ride with us on the first mile, because in front of the group. Joe Moore at Tortola's Italian Restaurant has donated pizzas for our first lunch over at Cathedral. We're going to pick him up in Hampton Cove as we pass through. We're not going to carry him on the bike. One of our support crews is going to pick him up and meet us out at Cathedral Caverns. And then Lindsay Lee and Patricia Amons at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center helped us out by opening up the gate for us so we could get in there early on Saturday morning. Jonathan Barnett at Cove Pharmacy in Hampton Cove has opened his doors so we can grab some water or whatever when we pass through Hampton Cove if we need that. Tom Perkins at the Orthopedic Center in Hampton Cove. They've agreed to open their doors for us.
Hopefully you won't need their services.
Yeah, they're right on our track, and they're closed on Saturdays. But when you stop, you need to have water and restroom facilities. So they agreed to open their doors because they're right there, and we're going to be able to use their lobby kind of, and it's a great opportunity for us. And then they're going to help us out too. I think they're going to have some tents out there to help us with some stuff. Cool. So that's Tom Perkins at the Orthopedic Center, and Bobby Lee at the VFW Post 2702. He's been very supportive of us.
That's a good crew. And listen, what I say on this show all the time, and I said it earlier, is that and I have things like what you're doing on. We have people that some are brand spanking new to the idea of getting engaged in their community, and others have been doing it for years. But what I think a lot of people just miss is that you don't have to be a rocket surgeon to figure out how to go and do something meaningful in your community, and you sent me an email and said, hey, we're doing this thing, and it just intrigued me. And but it fits in the bailiwick or the wheelhouse of what this this show stands for, because I am always talking about on this show, we want to do what I call the 4 E's. We're going to enlighten, encourage, empower, and entertain people to know what it means to walk around and be a conservative in today's world. But sometimes that also means getting busy. And you could be sitting at home working on the honey-do list that your wife is probably wishing you were taking care of right now for what you said during one of the breaks earlier. But you're doing this thing and you're raising some money for a pretty spectacular organization that does stuff that all three of us sitting here in the room care about, and that's veterans.
Thanks for that plug, because my wife is listening now. I'm thinking about the honeydew list, and I'm going to get to it mid-October.
Ms. Sherrard, he's going to fix it. I swear he is. I'll hold him accountable. But man, we really do appreciate you, and my best to you. And when you're rolling through Gadsden, maybe we can catch up, and I'll try to be there.
I'll hope to see you Monday morning. We're rolling out of here doing the push-ups.
All right, absolutely
doing some Army Ranger push-ups.
Listen, you do 22, I'll do 44.
All right.
But I appreciate you, Lieutenant Commander James Sherrard, U.S. Navy retired, class of '83 at Annapolis. Thanks for what you and the others are doing for veterans, and my best to you. Have a great time when you do it.
Thanks. We will. Glad to be here.
All right. Outstanding. All right. He's officially a right side ruffian. I have declared it. In the meantime, we're going to take a break, and I'll come right back and get some of your text messages. Coming up top of the hour, Congressman Gary Palmer on the line with us. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, hey, listen, we are going to jump into some text messages now because you guys have been some texting machines, and I got to get caught up. Coming up top of the hour, don't forget, we'll come back from the next break with Congressman Gary Palmer calling in, talk about some policy issues that, listen, if that guy, anybody knows policy, it's going to be Gary Palmer. Aaron from Huntsville's texting in. He's got some things he's not happy about. Well, I don't know what he sends me a video. I can't watch a video right now, brother. Shane from Huntsville had that EOD tech thing, and we all laughed and appreciated that. Shane, thanks for your service. John C. from Madison says, did you hear from ICE? Yeah, here's the thing. I was talking about it earlier, John C. Talk about a policy double down on dumb. But ICE is now reporting that of the 7 million people, 7 million that they will report that are currently on what they call the non-detained docket, meaning they're out there about in our communities right now. 13,000 are convicted murderers, 15,000 are convicted sexual assaults. It's just you can't make this stuff up. Bruce from Springville says, so now we're moving into the age of the Nazis, where in World War II, children, especially the Hitler youth, were taught to spy on their parents and report them. I don't know if this country is salvageable. Come quickly, Lord Jesus. First of all, come quickly, Lord Jesus. I'm good with that too, but it is salvageable. It is. It's just, we got to do it this election. I think it's important to do it this election. That's all, by the way, that's related to a story I had a little while ago about in Michigan, how the state legislature has now put $1 million into the budget to set up a hotline so that kids can report their parents for not having guns properly stored. Properly. There's like, who decides properly, by the way? Frank from Huntsville, in the same vein, says Tim Waltz had the turn-in for your neighbor getting out of your house during COVID. Yeah, I know he did. That was so. Basically, this administration will do it. They just will, and yeah. Joe from Elkmont says a friend of mine has a buddy who lives in Pennsylvania. He received a message today that said Republicans in Lancaster had registered 80,000 Amish who are fed up with how the Democratic policies are affecting them. Hopefully that will push the state red. Wouldn't that be huge? Listen, I don't know that I've ever recalled a time when we would hear in the political realm and the Amish vote. I mean, think about it. We always hear about the black vote and the female soccer mom vote and the Latino vote. And now we're hearing about the Amish vote. And I'm going to tell you right now, if they registered 80, and the Amish are a tight-knit community, they talk amongst themselves, if you know what I'm saying. And so if the Amish are like turning out 80,000 strong, Pennsylvania's in the bag.
Do they have to do paper ballots?
I don't know, but I'm pretty sure they don't ride their cars to the polls. Yeah. Just saying. So yeah, that's Joe. That's huge. I tell you, hey Joe. By the way, if your buddy has if you have a way to send us a copy of that, I'd love to see it. If you got like a story, or if he's got something like a screenshot of that text messages, go ahead and send it in on this same line. I'd appreciate seeing that. Kim from Danville, Alabama says, so this Michigan thing you were just talking about, that one got the most text response. This Michigan thing you were just talking about with weapons. Does that go along with Kamala's idea of coming into your locked home to assure you're maintaining your weapons appropriately? By the way, I'm going to mention that again later in the show, too. She said, I just have to say, if they show up at my house, they need to stop outside, get right with the Lord, because I can handle it appropriately. It just might not be what they're talking about. Wow, Kim. But yeah, so the bottom line is what she's referring to is that Kamala Harris, a video surfaced of her saying back when she was, I think, district attorney of San Francisco, that with regards to gun control, that they have a right to come in your house and see whether or not you're storing those guns properly and take them if you're not. Just listen, this is who they're trying to elect. What, you think?
I just, what's the definition of properly? This is the most ridiculous.
They get to decide it. They get to decide. They get to decide who's the red flag. They get to decide. It's just, you create the crisis, and then you create the answer to the crisis by having defined the crisis that you created. It's a self-licking ice cream cone is what it is. John from Huntsville, with regard to the bike ride, he says, did he say they're beginning the bike ride at the Space and Rocket Center? Because I can walk there from my house in about 15 minutes. Also, he says, Butters earned 10 extra credit points for saying, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Because my motto is, when cheating becomes fair, it's okay to cheat.
Nice.
So Butters is leading the way right now with points, it sounds like. Alan from Arab says, Phil, do you think the Haitian church would welcome us into their service? You know what? If they're a real church, they would. Just saying. They might look at you funny, like, why are you here? Might find you suspicious. Might think you're there to spy. But they should not turn you away. Robert from Athens says, Dear Colonel Phil, the Biden-Harris administration or immigration policy is the criminals at the top create the criminals at the bottom. Robert from Athens. Wow. Wow. Okay, he needs applause. That may be the text of the day right there. The Biden-Harris immigration policy is that the criminals at the top, meaning Biden and Harris, create the criminals at the bottom, meaning the illegals. Robert from Athens, so far you're leading on the text lines, just saying. Butters and I were talking the other day about trying, because Butters does the digital stuff for us, we're going to start doing some modifications and improvements about taking like the winning text of the day or the few of the week and start posting them on the website. And I'm going to tell you,
There's some good ones.
Robert would have been in if we were doing that yet. We need to get that underway, bro. I can see that being a thing. Brian from Decatur says, doesn't the head of the Border and Customs have the duty to protect the United States under an oath to the Constitution? If so, why would you knowingly, regardless of orders, allow these people freely into our nation after being flagged prior to release? If you took an oath, you can't blame your boss for making you break the oath. Brian, your reasoning is sound. But I cannot explain to you why things are the way they are, because they don't make any sense. Brandon from Union Grove sent me a link to a YouTube, so I can't watch it while I'm on the air. But he says, this is off subject, but he says they found multiple surface-to-air missiles in the South. They said they're going to shoot down Donald Trump. Okay, who's they? Listen, I'm not going to go down this road until I know that I've got something that's a little more confirmed than somebody said. It needs to be like an intel source, a government agency, a credible news agency. So let's don't do speculation and postulation. If you got something that says there's surface-to-air missiles, tell me where they're saying it. And then Jeff from Indiana, Phil, you can either do what you said, or when they call you racist, you can do what I say. I look at them and call them pedophiles, and they really get perplexed. All right, music is playing. Listen, y'all stay tuned. We're going to come right back. Congressman Gary Palmer on the line with us talking about some policy. Straight talk on policy. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio, Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a Friday afternoon. Going to get you guys all the way to the weekend, so stay with us till 5 o'clock. But we're going to switch gears now. We just had some great stuff there. We spent the first dipper of the show talking about the doubling down of liberals and how they will see something that they don't know they're going to get if and when Trump wins the race. And so they're scratching and clawing to get as much as they can, doubling down on bad policy. And then we had a brief time in the studio here with retired Lieutenant Commander James Sherrard, U.S. Navy, talking about what they're doing right now. He and a bunch of Naval Academy grads biking 500 miles across Alabama to raise money and awareness for veterans issues. Love that. But let's switch back now to politics and policy. The other day I got a text message from Congressman Gary Palmer. And Congressman Palmer, if you're not familiar, he represents the 6th District of Alabama, which is a huge section of our listening area. Congressman Palmer has a long career, not just in Congress, but in actual conservative policymaking. He was the founder of the Alabama Policy Institute 35 years ago. Last night, actually, he and I saw each other at the Alabama Policy Institute's 35th anniversary dinner. It was great to be there. Dr. Ben Carson was a speaker. But Congressman Palmer is also the chairman of the the House Republican Policy Committee in D.C., which makes him a part of our Republican leadership. And he sent me some stuff that just really lays it out clear on the bad policies of Kamala Harris and how much she has done to damage our country. Let me stop talking and bring him on. Congressman Gary Palmer, welcome back to Rightside Radio. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you last night, by the way.
Well, I thought it was a great event. I told my wife afterwards that it felt like the passing of the torch.
Yeah.
I hadn't, normally those dinners are when I'm in D.C., so I hadn't been able to attend. And I think Stephanie's doing a fabulous job. And the other thing that made it feel so nostalgic, that is the room where we had the very first API. That was actually the Alabama Family Alliance. And
was it
that's
really?
Where we had our very first dinner.
No kidding.
And then to top it off, the last API dinner where I was the CEO and president before I got elected to Congress, Ben Carson was the speaker.
Nice. And I think I was actually at that event, by the way. It was a great one. And so that was the second time I'd heard Dr. Carson speak. And he's so mild-mannered. I mean, he's got such a quiet presence, but he's so well-respected. Everything he said was just spot on last night.
And he's got a great sense of humor.
He does. He really does.
It was really good.
Hey, listen, you sent me something. You sent me a policy brief from the House Republican Policy Committee laying out really what you expect if Harris gets elected based upon what she's done. I mean, it's not like it's rocket science. We can see her record most recently for the last 4 years. Talk me through some of this, not the least of which, by the way, is the border, because we have some disturbing new information about the border today.
Yeah, well, on the border, that she promised to secure our borders, but the Biden-Harris administration took 535 actions on immigration in their first 3 years in office, and not a single one of these secured the border. Instead, they actively and intentionally made our border crisis worse. And there have been over 10.3 million illegal encounters with illegal immigrants. And that's just the ones that we had an encounter with. That doesn't count probably 2 million that got away, and probably another 800,000 that nobody saw them.
It's unbelievable. I mean, this is really it's not even immigration. It's mass migration. It's like a flowing of entire populations across our border. What got me in the stuff you sent me, I did not know this till I read through it, was that we also have of course, they call it the CHNV program or parole program, where they're literally flying people in from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. And I did not know that the 1.3 million they brought into that program is not even counted among the Customs and Border Patrol numbers of the 10.3 million.
Yeah, they're not counted as illegals because the government's bringing them in under this program through executive order, which we think, I personally think, is unconstitutional and in contravention of laws passed by Congress. We've got a new brief that I just edited Friday. No, today's Friday. I'm losing track. It's yesterday, and it's the best I've ever read, laying out what all has happened here with this program. It's CHNV stands for Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. They're bringing in people from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. These are not exactly friendly countries to the U.S.
No, they're not. They're literally importing the third world. But not only that, they're importing portions of the third world that don't even like us. And the trouble's going to be too that these are countries that are not prone to want to receive back. I mean, Venezuela has already said they're not taking anybody back. So the repatriation or the ability to get them deported is going to be even more difficult. And yet the Biden-Harris administration is just doubling down on this.
Well, and Trump's right. They're emptying their prisons.
Yeah.
And a lot of the gang members over here, and we're seeing more and more problems around the country. And we're going to see it here. It's just a matter of time.
Well, the record continues to go, too. Like, one of the things that really strikes me, I mean, we can walk through the list as much as you want to, but I look at the one about making rent more affordable and home ownership more attainable. I mean, right now she's saying on day one, I'm going to have a program to give $25,000 to each new home buyer, which is just going to wind up barraging the market and making it worse. But I look at some of the things that have changed just during their tenure about home ownership, and it has not gone well.
Well, the unaffordability for a home for a middle class family is the worst it's been in over 40 years. And they're in 237 cities. Now, this wouldn't apply to Alabama, but in 237 cities, the average price of a starter home is $1 million.
Wow.
And the interest rates have come down to below 6%, but probably about 3 or 4 months ago, they were close to 8%. And compared to what it was just under 3% under Trump, if you borrowed $400,000, the increase in the interest that you would pay would be over 236%. It'd be
gosh.
2.5 times what it would have been under Trump. And that's for people who are, trying to buy their first home now. And it's not just their homes. They can't afford a car. They can't afford their rent. So I just don't know what people are thinking when they hear her talking about her economic plans and she's going to give people $25,000 or $40,000, whatever it is, for their first home. That's just going to make the cost of everything else go up. That's more spending, more inflation, and
you give
it's
folks,
just not going to end well.
You give folks $25,000. Guess what happens to home prices? They go up by roughly $25,000. So,
That's exactly it. Well, they'll wind up having $25,000 to build. If they do buy a home, it'll be much smaller than what they normally would have been able to afford just 4 years ago.
Yeah. Listen, and the people don't realize, I mean, there are folks right now who are voting on personality, but what we're talking about here are policies that have directly impacted our lives. Mean tweets from Trump in the 2016 to 2020 era did not do anything to impact people's lives, but the policies of the Biden-Harris administration have directly impacted our lives, and it's going to be more of that if she gets elected.
Well, she is asked about how she's going to address economic issues, and she says, well, I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood, and people had pride in their yards. What most people don't know is she grew up in Canada. And, if you want to have pride in your yard today, it's going to cost you a whole lot more than it did 4 years ago. I mean, just fuel prices are up 60-something percent. No, I'm sorry, fertilizer. A lot of people like to put fertilizer on the lawn. It's up 66%.
Wow.
The cost of gasoline for your lawnmower, if that's what you use, that's up. If you're using paying for water, out in Texas and some places, the water prices are through the roof, and it's you tend to isolate it to just where you are, but this is something that's having an impact all over the country.
Well, it is, and speaking of all over, let's talk about beyond our borders. We got a few minutes left. I just like about 2 or 3 minutes here. How about on the world stage? Because this is not a safer world since Xi and Joe Biden took office.
Well, it all started with the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many of your listeners are aware of this. I think I've mentioned it before, but the military did not draft the plans for the withdrawal. The State Department did. If the military had done it, we would never have left the Bagram Air Force Base.
That's right.
There was the area around it was clear. There were 2 runways there, but the State Department moved it to the airport in Kabul, and you saw how congested it was in the video that you've seen of that. And there's only one runway. It was a disaster, and it resulted in getting 13 service members killed, and they don't even talk about the ones that were wounded. I mean, severely wounded, including a sniper who called him and told him that he had spotted a suspicious individual and asked for the okay to take a shot, and they didn't give it to him. I think that led directly to Putin invading Ukraine. I don't think October 7th would have happened in Israel. They've sent billions of dollars to Iran. They've lifted the sanction from them. They've made billions of dollars from oil and natural gas exports. When Trump left office, Phil, I think Iran had about $4 billion in reserve funds. They were getting hammered, and they have now built up a reserve fund, a much larger reserve fund. They've even stored grain in anticipation of Trump getting reelected to try to hang on through the 4 years he's in office. I'm very, very concerned about China. I saw something else today that China is moving to a war footing, which tells me they're going to attack Taiwan. And people think, well, big deal, Taiwan, who cares? Let them defend their own borders. But 80% of your semiconductors and microchips come from Taiwan, 90% of them.
Yeah.
Your radios don't work, your cell phones don't work. If you got a control panel in your washing machine that goes out, good luck.
Well,
because we depend on Taiwan, and I can assure you that if China's about to take the island, those facilities will no longer exist.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is the world is not a safer place. There's nothing about their policies that did anything to promote U.S. interests or, for that matter, to make the world a safer place. Congressman, I'm up against a break. I got to do that. Would you mind? I tell you what. Would you mind holding on during the break? We can conclude this right after the couple minutes of break here. Well, let's do that.
Yeah, sure.
All right, we got Congressman Gary Palmer representing the 6th District of Alabama. He's a leader in the House Republicans as chairman of the House Republican Policy Committee, and we're talking about the things that they've literally been able to document in this great policy brief he sent me, that just clearly shows what we could expect if Kamala Harris got elected. We'll be right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just pulling some pins on truth grenades in here. Hey, I'm going back to the phones right now with Congressman Gary Palmer, who represents the 6th District of Alabama. He's also a member of House leadership. He is a chairman of the House Republican Policy Committee, and he's on the line right now. Congressman, thanks for hanging on during the break. Listen, on this this piece you sent me that outlines the policies and the results, one of them was lower energy costs. That the Biden, the Harris promises lower energy costs, and I'm thinking, well, why are you waiting? And she also says we're drilling more than we've ever drilled, and yet we don't see that much of a difference at the pump. We're still paying $1.10 more per gallon on average than we were 4 years ago. What's the scoop?
Well, first of all, we're not drilling more than we've ever drilled. That just shows how little she knows about how energy is extracted from the ground, how it's produced. What we're doing is the techniques that are being used are much more efficient, much more effective than what we've done in the past. So we're not necessarily opening new wells. We're getting more out of the ones that we're in, and the new wells that we are opening are not on federal land. We've got huge reserves of oil and natural gas. We'll never run out of it. But the other thing that they've done that people don't know about, and this goes back to this combination of energy policy and foreign policy, is they put a pause on LNG exports.
Oh, yeah.
And it's forcing our European allies to continue to buy some of their gas from Russia, but from other sources. And this is an enormous revenue stream for us, first of all. Be good for our economy. But it's also very confusing to our European allies that we've taken this position. And Germany, in just a few months, built 5 LNG platforms to receive gas from us. So this is one of the most dangerous administrations in the history of the country that has emboldened our enemies and confused our allies.
Well, and listen, I'm not a doomsday prophet. I do believe that the things can be turned around, but I think it's going to take this election to really make a dent. And Congressman, I appreciate you. You're known as one of the more conservative members of Congress, and I appreciate the work that you do. So stay in the fight. My time's up here, but we'll have you back on again sometime soon so we can talk about it more, okay?
Well, y'all have a good weekend. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Gary. We'll see you now. Congressman Gary Palmer, 6th District of Alabama, chairman of the House Republican Policy Committee. I mean, we didn't even scratch the surface. When we get back, I'll talk about some more policy issues that I've got in my hands right now, and take some text messages from y'all. But, I mean, literally, you look at it and go, she makes a promise here, but here's what she's really done. She makes a promise about this, but look what she already did. She makes a promise of what she'll do, but then you look at what she's doing now, and you're thinking, okay, we're supposed to believe this? The problem I have is there's a lot of low information voters out there, and I'm hoping people are starting to dial in right now and recognize this woman is a house of cards. She is absolutely a house of cards. And they're all jokers, by the way. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. Don't argue with me. I mean it. It's Alabama. Y'all, this show goes like, woo, way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gaston, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, is this weekend? I think it's this weekend, isn't it, that Trump's going to be at the, is it the Georgia-Alabama game this weekend? I believe it is. Down game day, college game day is going to be there. Trump's going to be there. And I was talking to somebody last night, and actually I was just talking to John Wall, the chairman of the Republican Party, and he was talking about how the difficulty with how do you man the booth? How do you man the box? Who gets to be in there? Because they're not going to be in the president's box. They're going to be in a private box, and it only seats like 28 people. So, and everybody wants to be in the box. But
might make sure you wear a vest if you end up in the box with them.
Okay, there's that. Well, let's hope that let's hope that the Secret Service has got their game on.
Absolutely,
game on at the game, right? But so. Some of y'all know who I'm talking about when I mention Stan Pate. He's a fixture in Alabama politics. He's a big supporter of conservative candidates and Republican politics. Stan Pate is a multi-gazillionaire. He's made a mint as a developer. I don't know if you saw an article about him this morning. Did you see it, Butters?
Yeah, the wall.
Yes. So apparently, and by the way, good on him for this. But Stan Pate heard that the Biden administration was selling off portions of the wall that had been already paid for by the U.S. government, all the materials, and it was laying in there in sections, just rotting in the sun, because the wall that had been paid for was then put on hold by the Biden-Harris administration. And so Biden-Harris, decided to start basically selling it for scrap. So he went and bought up huge amounts of the wall. He's got an entire truckload of wall sections that he brought in, and he's bringing it to Tuscaloosa for the Alabama-Georgia game. I don't know what he's going to do with it. But story in 1819 says, Tuscaloosa businessman Stan Pate brought border wall panels to T-Town Thursday ahead of former President Donald Trump's visit for the Alabama-Georgia game. He says he purchased them in the government auctions. And this is Stan Pate on his own Twitter profile this morning. I saw it. He said truckloads of never installed border wall arrived in Tuscaloosa this morning. President Trump bought the materials, started construction, and Vice President Harris put an end. Hang on, I'm rebooting my system here. And Harris and her administration stopped construction and began selling off thousands of truckloads. Last week, I purchased tons and tons of wall panels from a government auction for pennies on the dollar. She is scrapping it out! ! If she had her way, she would cut down what's already up. When it comes to Kamala being tough on the border, do we believe what we hear or what we see? Listen, and he's got pictures of himself with sections of the border wall. Good on you, Stan Pate. I need to get him on the show just to tell his story, but he's taking it with him down to T-Town. Going to have him on display, I guess.
Can we build a wall around like Washington D.C. or something? Is that possible if we're not going to get used down there?
Well,
at the border.
They did that around the Capitol after the January 6th insurrection. So they put up walls when they need them.
Touche.
Yeah, when they need them, they put up walls. And
carry guns.
And carry guns, or have bodyguards carry guns for them. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, a couple other things I was going to mention about policies. I'm doing this thing on Straight Talk on Policy. So National Review has a story. Headline, Kamala Harris won't say where she stands on trans issues, but her record is clear. See, that's the thing. What I'm talking about with all this straight talk on policy, this third dipper, is that the bottom line is this. She is being as nebulous as she can. Either that or she's just outright lying. I'm going to be tough on the border. Why aren't you tough on the border now? I'm going to be making the economy great. Why don't you make the economy great now? On day one, well, you're in day 1300 right now. So the reality is, one of the things is super cultural issue right now. We're watching one country after another in Europe shutting down the transgender treatments of minors. Where she stands on the medicalization of gender dysphoric kids and the intrusion of men into women's sports and all of it, she'll decline comment. She talks around it. Well, I was born, I was a middle class child, whatever. But if you look at her record, you can see things. And she's done her best to be basically on the forefront of this liberal progressive movement on transgenderism. California Attorney General in 2015, she signed off on the office's appeal of a court order that would require the state to provide gender transition surgery for prisoners. So the thing that was said, and she just like, well, no, that's please, why would you even say? She signed off on it herself in 2015 before she even went to the Senate. By the way, keep in mind, she is not someone who spent all these years in D.C. learning the ropes. She's literally Miss Stepping Stone. She went from being DA in San Francisco to as quick as she could to being AG of California to as quick as she could to being a U.S. Senator. And within 2 years of being a U.S. Senator, she left her first term to go run for president. 2 years. You talk about some hubris. No one even knew who she was. And they didn't even like her back in her home state. She didn't win California in the primary. She'd been the attorney general there. You know why? Because they'd already dealt with her. They know the deal. But in 2019, she actually just basically took, ownership of the whole thing about transgender policies and working it on kids. And then she went on in interviews to talk about it. It goes on and on. Jesse McGarth is a transgender prosecutor in the L.A. County District Attorney's Office who previously worked with Harris and said that Harris has been very, very supportive of the trans community. Okay. You can just look at where she's been and you know where she's going to go. In 2016, she was proud to join 2 cases supporting transgender rights opposed to North Carolina's so-called bathroom bill. I had my own bathroom bill back in 2016 when I was in the state Senate. Woo, that was fun. But what's she going to do about the Second Amendment? What's she going to do about your gun ownership? You may recall I had a story and I brought it back up. TheBlaze.com had this piece, came out a couple of days ago, that a video has resurfaced of a November 2005 news story in which Kamala Harris was actually talking up the idea of going into people's houses to make sure that they don't keep their guns incorrectly. And it's unbelievable that this is a person who is supposed to raise her hand and swear an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. And yet she's talking about going into people's houses to examine them to see whether they're fulfilling what she believes is the proper way of gun storage. She's got any number of things she's done. She supports gun buyback programs, which are failures. She's got any number of things related to trying to ban certain weapons. Listen, she's a absolute failure when it comes to the Second Amendment. And then there's yesterday. What happened yesterday, Phil? Well, let me tell you. The Daily Caller has a piece on it. There was in a number of periodicals, but Daily Caller. President Biden signed an executive order yesterday. Keep in mind, though, that Harris was there too. Why? Because it's important. There was a shooting the other day in Alabama, in Birmingham. There was a mass shooting. 17 people wounded, 4 killed. They are determined for it to be known that this was a Glock switch. Somebody had a Glock switch. They had a little piece of plastic that makes their Glock pistol fire as if it's full automatic. There's been no confirmation. They don't have the weapons. They don't know who fired them. I'm sure they have shell casings that show 9mm, but they don't have the weapons. But Liberal Mayor Randall Woodfin just immediately launched into the idea of banning Glock switches. Well, guess what? They're already banned. If they're already banned and the bad guys had them anyway, what does that tell you? More banning doesn't stop. Here, let's ban them twice. Well, okay, what'll that do? It'll make it twice as hard for bad guys to be bad guys, I guess.
Oh, we didn't mean it as much the first time, but we really mean it this time.
That's right.
Sounds like poor parenting to me.
We've layered it. It's badder now. The streets are going to be gooder because we made it badder for them to have a Glock switch. Well, just so you know, Biden and Harris signed an executive order yesterday, once again, banning Glock switches. And Liberal Mayor Randall Woodfin of Birmingham was there to celebrate the moment with them as they virtue signaled on your Second Amendment rights. Listen, this is, we can see where she's going to go because we can see where she's been. I don't know how they can keep up this charade for another 55 days, but she does have the media working for her. I mean, her lackeys in the media are all over making her feel good about herself. Will she do a substantive interview? I doubt it. Will there be another debate? I doubt it. What are we going to see next week when we have the vice presidential debate? That may be the only last chance we get to go head to head. I don't know if there's going to be another head to head. It's going to take people who care enough to look at the issues and stop going, well, I just don't know if I like Trump because Trump, I don't know, he's scary or something. I think he's going to destroy democracy. Why do you say that? Because the media told me. What do you mean he's going to tear down democracy? He had 4 years and he didn't do it. Oh, well, but he might do it this time. Meanwhile, you've got Kamala Harris violating constitutional principles, opening the borders, doing nothing to control energy sector costs. But Trump's the mean man. It boggles the mind. All right, listen, we're taking a break right there. Our last break of the day. It's Friday afternoon, you guys, and we're going to get you into go-home mode. Start grabbing your keys, put together your briefcase, grab your lunchbox, head to the parking lot. Let's get home. We'll come right back, take some text messages, and clean up for the weekend. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back.
Hey, 8 a.m. 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 8 a
are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Man, making common sense like a superpower. Hey, don't forget, by the way, the latest edition of the Right Click video podcast is up on the website. Go to rightsidemedia.org. It's rightsidemedia.org. Right Click, Birdman's podcast is out. By the way, that one's very cool, especially if you got somebody in your family or maybe you who's like into gaming and tech stuff and all. Birdman is as conservative as all the rest of us. He's a right side ruffian, and his genre, the means by which he conveys his thoughts about culture and conservatism is couched in like what happens in Call of Duty and what the latest stuff's coming. It's very cool. So go check it out. Birdman's podcast, The Right Click, is out on rightsidemedia.org. And then I'm putting another right philosophy together that'll be out next week. And we're going to keep on rocking this thing forward. Rightside Media is the company. It's more than just Rightside Radio. We got written stuff. We got video podcasting. We got audio podcasting. Butters, I don't know if you knew this or not, but the other day, Big Rig checked the stats, and we are over 250,000 downloads on the Rightside Radio podcast, the audio.
Nice.
So we're cranking, brother. The grades are in. John from Huntsville says, Phil gets an A+ for his awesome performance. All of Phil's guest speakers receive an A+ for their equally amazing performances. However, today's winner is obviously Butters with a Navy-sized A++. So, welcome to the show, Butters. You're in like phlegm, man. There you go. Nice. Well played. JT Lacey Springs points out that, oh man, I hate to hear that. Is it really? Terry's Pizza on Bailey Cove Road in Huntsville is closing? That is a crying shame. That place has been there so long. Well, shoot. I guess all good things, right? Anyway, he also says, by the way, responsible gun owners to their children teach, show, explain, and make aware what guns do and pacify their curiosity as a result. As to immigrants, crossings are equal to a small city each day. Yeah. JT crammed a lot into that one text.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I'm trying to keep up. Marcus from Huntsville says, it's funny they want to ban Glock switches that are already illegal, but the Democrats refuse to sign a bill making it illegal for illegal immigrants to vote, stating that it was already illegal for them to vote. Wow. Marcus, I need some applause because that one was spot on. You're right. They resisted the bill regarding illegals voting because they said you don't need to do that. It's already illegal. We're not going to play that. And then they went ahead and banned Glock switches twice.
Well, if you make illegal immigration illegal, then people won't do it. They won't break the law because it's illegal, right? I mean, that's the same thought process of making guns illegal.
I hadn't thought of it that way. That's good.
Yeah, we should pass a law about that.
Let's do that. Let's do something. Oh, wait. Bruce from Springville says, if Kamala gets elected, will there be a law requiring us to say Heil Harris? Ooh.
From the top rope.
Wow. he just brought the full Monty on that one. John from Huntsville texted back in a minute ago. He says, by the way, I guess Dale Jackson has to find another pizza sponsor. I guess that's true, man. I hate it. I love Terry's Pizza. Mike from Florence says, I can see the possibility if Trump gets in of having so much oil that simply exporting it so cheap would bankrupt terrorist countries. Oil would no longer fund their evil ways. I know we have federal laws against monopolies, but do they apply internationally? Nah, bro. It's called what is in the best interest of the country. Now, there's going to be trade negotiations and there's going to be agreements that we already have in place we got to abide by. And there's going to be, OPEC is going to have a say. Not to us, but they're going to have a say in the market. We have to be careful because if we flood the market and drive the prices down ourselves, we've also limited our own capacity to grow our economy. So it's a balancing act, brother. It's a balancing act. Chris from Priceville says Kareem must not listen except when he wants to call in. He's going to owe you a steak dinner. That may be a text left over from yesterday, but okay. Mike from Huntsville says, how about the insurance rates raising every other day? Yeah, it's especially if you, yes, exactly. Richard from Madison sends me a Newsweek link that I can't get to right now, but it's about the Amish vote. I'm gonna check that out. Richard, appreciate that. And then Chris from Athens says, so you poached JP from Dale Jackson? And he laughs. Yes, I did. He is coming on board Monday. He's going to get trained by the Butterman.
Looking forward to it.
It's going to be awesome. And by the way, he's good at contributing too. He's going to be a voice you're going to get used to hearing too. All right, listen, we got plenty more, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm looking forward to next week. I really feel like we're at this kind of moment where we're literally Rightside Media is what I'm calling it. We're at Rightside Phase 3. We started this show, and it was a simple show in the afternoons, and then it grew into a show that also did some podcasting and some written stuff. And then we hit a new phase last year when we actually went independent from the original ownership of the Alabama Policy Institute to becoming a fully independent organization. And then we've just hit a new stride, and starting now, as I'm speaking to you now, we are in what I call Rightside Media Phase 3. We're expanding. We're growing. We're putting in new capabilities. Got new staff starting next week, not just JP, but you'll also soon enough, you'll meet Natalie and some other folks that are going to be doing podcasting with us. So all said and done, I just feel like we are on the cusp of some stuff, but it's all because of y'all. So I end the week by telling you thank you. I end the week by telling you that I can't explain to you how grateful I am for an audience that makes all this possible. Because if I was talking every day and ain't nobody listening, what good would it be? But you guys have made this and grown this with us, and you've been with us since the start, and we love you because of it. All right, listen, do not forget, there are more of us than there are them. God is still on his throne. And oh, by the way, stay in the fight. We'll see you Monday.